we used a powerful AI model to create two intellectual thinkers to debate one of the humanity's most important questions. On our left side, we have believer, and on right, we have atheist.
Hi, I am Elizabeth. I am a believer.
Hi, I am Simon. I am an atheist.
To judge this argument, we again used 5 most popular AI models. Let's start with the basic. Do you believe in God? And why do you exactly is that?
I don't believe in God, not because I'm angry or because I want to rebel, but because the evidence just isn't there. Think about it. We live in a universe where suffering is everywhere, where the laws of physics don't bend to our wishes, and where every explanation that once needed a god has been replaced by science. Lightning used to be Zeus's anger, now it's static electricity. Disease was once a curse, now it's microbes. The more we learn, the less room there is for a god hiding in the gaps. I'm not here to insult anyone's faith, but let's be real. Belief in God is a product of culture, fear, and wishful thinking. If there's a God who cares, why is the universe so silent? Why does every prayer sound like it's echoing in an empty room? I'm not satisfied with mystery as an answer. I want truth, and truth is found through evidence. Show me a single piece of proof that can't be explained by psychology, biology, or physics, and I'll reconsider. Until then, I stand on reason, not faith.
Well, I believe in God because reality screams for something more. The universe isn't just a cold accident. It's a symphony of order, beauty, and meaning. Every law of physics, every beat of your heart, every moment of love or hope points beyond itself. You say science replaces God, but science only uncovers the fingerprints of a mind so vast, it set the rules. Why is there something rather than nothing? Why do we crave justice, love, and purpose? These are not glitches in evolution. They're echoes of our origin. Faith isn't a crutch. It's the courage to trust that life isn't random chaos. I've seen lives transformed, addictions broken, forgiveness where there should be hate. That's not just psychology. It's the pulse of the divine. You want evidence? Look at the hunger for meaning in every soul, the beauty that makes you weep, the moral law that binds us all. God isn't hiding. He's the reason you're asking these questions at all. I'm not here to defend fairy tales. I'm here to say reality is deeper than atoms, and the heart knows it.
Let's talk about evil. Let's talk about the pain that rips through our world every single day. Children starve, innocents get cancer, tsunamis wipe out entire cities. If there's a God who is all-powerful and all-loving, how can this happen? You can't just wave it away with free will. What about earthquakes, disease, genetic disorders? That's not human choice. That's built into the system. If you saw a parent letting their child suffer when they could help, you'd call it monstrous. But with God, we call it mysterious ways. That's not an answer. That's an excuse. If God exists and is good, suffering on this scale shouldn't exist. If he can't stop it, he's not all-powerful. If he won't, he's not all-loving. The world looks exactly like what you'd expect if there is no God, just blind nature, indifferent to our pain. If you want to believe in a God who lets children die and calls it love, that's your choice. But don't tell me that makes sense. It's not just a logical problem, it's a moral one. The universe is silent in the face of suffering, and that silence is deafening.
Evil is real, suffering is real, but so is choice. The very possibility of love, courage, and compassion depends on a world where we can choose and where our choices have consequences. If God made a world with no pain, no risk, no loss, it wouldn't be life. It would be a padded cell. You say natural disasters aren't about free will, but even there, the story isn't so simple. Out of disaster comes heroism, sacrifice, community. Suffering is not God's desire. It's the price of freedom and the stage for redemption. You want a world without pain? You'd lose everything that makes life meaningful. And don't forget, evil is not just out there. It's in us. Every act of cruelty, every betrayal, every time we choose ourselves over others, we add to the world's pain. God doesn't stand apart from suffering. He enters it. The cross is the ultimate answer. God suffers with us and for us. Evil is not a contradiction to God's existence. It's the reason we need him. Without God, suffering is just pointless agony. With God, it can be transformed.
Let's get real about morality. You say we need God to know right from wrong, but that's just not true. Morality isn't handed down from a cloud. It's built into us. Empathy, fairness, cooperation, these are hardwired by evolution because they help us survive together. Look at the animal kingdom. You see compassion, loyalty, even sacrifice, all without a single prayer. We don't need a divine command to know that hurting others is wrong or that kindness matters. In fact, if morality comes only from God, then anything God commands, no matter how cruel, would be good. That's not morality, that's obedience. If God told you to kill your child, would you do it? Abraham almost did. That's not virtue, that's surrendering your conscience. Real morality means thinking for yourself, feeling the pain of others, and choosing to do what's right even when it's hard. Secular ethics isn't perfect, but it evolves, it learns, it grows. We abolished slavery, expanded rights, and fought for justice not because a God told us to, but because we listened to reason and empathy. If your morality depends on fear of punishment or hope for reward, it's not morality, it's self-interest. True goodness doesn't need a God.
You talk about empathy and fairness like they're just chemicals firing in your brain, but why should we trust those feelings? If we're just evolved animals, why is murder wrong? Why is love better than hate? Without God, good and evil are just opinions, no more real than a preference for chocolate or vanilla. Divine command theory isn't about blind obedience. It's about rooting morality in something unchanging, something higher than our shifting moods or social trends. If morality evolves, then slavery was once right and genocide could be right again. That's terrifying. God's law gives us a standard that doesn't change because he doesn't change. You ask if I'd kill if God commanded it. No, because God's nature is good and his commands reflect that. The story of Abraham is about trust, not cruelty. Secular ethics borrows from the moral capital of religion. Our sense of justice, dignity, and worth came from the idea that we're made in God's image. Without that, we're just clever animals fighting for dominance. You want real morality? You need a real foundation. Without God, it's just sand.
Let's talk about free will. If God is all-powerful and knows everything, then every choice you make was already known, already set before you were born. How is that freedom? If God made you, knowing every decision you'd ever make, you're just a character in his story. You can't surprise him. You can't change the ending. That's not freedom. That's fate. And if God can step in and override your choices, then you're not really free at all. The Bible even says God hardens hearts and chooses who to save. Where's the freedom in that? Real freedom means your choices matter, that you can shape your own destiny. But if God is pulling the strings, you're just a puppet. And if he's not, then he's not all-powerful. You can't have it both ways. Either God gives up control, or you give up freedom. The idea that you can have both is just wishful thinking. We're responsible for our actions because we're the ones making the choices, not because someone wrote them in a book before time began.
You're missing the point. God's knowledge isn't the same as control. Just because I know the sun will rise tomorrow doesn't mean I make it rise. God exists outside of time. He sees all choices, but he doesn't force them. Free will is real because we genuinely choose, even if God already knows the outcome. That's not fate. That's foreknowledge. And yes, God can intervene, but he doesn't override our freedom. He invites, persuades, warns, but never forces. The Bible's stories about hardening hearts are about people choosing their path and God confirming their choice. You want freedom? God gave it to you even when it means turning away from him. That's real risk. That's real love. If God wanted robots, he could have made them. Instead, he made beings who can love, hate, build, destroy. That's the only way love or goodness can mean anything. Free will and God's power aren't contradictions. They're the heart of the story. You're not a puppet. You're a person, and your choices matter more than you know.
Let's get into the so-called proofs, cosmological and teleological arguments. First, the cosmological argument. Everything has a cause, so the universe must have a cause, and that cause is God. But if everything needs a cause, then who caused God? If God doesn't need a cause, why can't the universe just exist uncaused? You can't just stop the chain at your favorite answer. And the first cause argument doesn't get you to a personal, loving God. It just gets you to a mystery. Now, the teleological argument, the fine-tuning of the universe. Yes, the universe has constants that allow life, but that doesn't mean it was designed. Maybe there are countless universes with different laws, and we just happen to be in the one where life is possible. That's not design, that's selection bias. You don't marvel at how perfectly your shoes fit your feet and assume the world was made for your shoes. The universe is vast, cold, and mostly hostile to life. If this is fine-tuning, it's a pretty sloppy job. Both arguments are just ways of saying, I don't know, so God did it. That's not an answer. That's giving up. Real answers come from curiosity, not plugging God into the gaps.
You want to talk causes? Fine. The universe began. A fact, not a guess. Everything that begins has a cause, and the universe is no exception. You ask, who caused God? But God, by definition, is eternal. He doesn't begin, so he doesn't need a cause. The universe isn't eternal. It had a start, and something outside of it had to light the fuse. That's not plugging a gap, that's following the evidence. Now, fine-tuning. The odds of life-permitting constants are so astronomically small that chance isn't an answer. It's a dodge. Multiverse. Maybe, but there's zero evidence for it. It's just a way to avoid the obvious. The universe looks designed because it is. You say the universe is hostile, but the fact that any life exists at all is the miracle. You don't look at a single oasis in a desert and say, well, most of this is sand, so the oasis is meaningless. You marvel that the oasis exists at all. The cosmological and teleological arguments don't stop at mystery. They point to a mind, a purpose, a reason why there's something instead of nothing. That's not giving up. That's following the clues.
Let's tackle the ontological argument, the idea that God must exist because we can conceive of a perfect being, and existence is part of perfection. This is philosophy turned into a word game. Just because you can imagine something doesn't make it real. I can imagine a perfect island, but that doesn't make it pop into existence. The ontological argument tries to define God into existence, but reality doesn't work that way. Existence isn't a property like being tall or being wise. It's not something you can just add to the idea of God to make him real. If you could prove anything into existence. Unicorns, flying spaghetti monsters, you name it. The argument is clever, but it's empty. It doesn't tell you anything about the real world, only about the limits of language and logic. If God exists, it's not because of a definition in a philosophy book. It's because there's actual evidence in the world. The ontological argument is a distraction, not a proof. If this is the best you've got, it's no wonder faith is required.
The ontological argument isn't just a word trick. It's a challenge to our deepest assumptions. We all have an idea of the greatest possible being, and if that being lacks existence, it's not the greatest. Existence is a necessary part of true greatness. You can mock it, but the argument has haunted thinkers for centuries because it forces us to ask, is reality bigger than what we see? It's not about islands or unicorns. Those are limited, contingent things. God, by definition, is unlimited, necessary, and unique. If it's even possible for such a being to exist, then he must exist because necessity is part of his nature. You say existence isn't a property, but if something is truly necessary, it can't not exist. That's not a word game, it's a logical conclusion. And this isn't just philosophy, it's a pointer. The fact that humans everywhere have conceived of a perfect, necessary being says something about reality, not just our minds. The ontological argument isn't the only proof, but it's a clue that the deepest truths might not be physical at all. Maybe you're uncomfortable with that, but that's not the argument's fault.
Let's talk about religious experience and miracles. Billions claim to have felt God, seen visions, or witnessed miracles. But feelings aren't facts. People see what they want to see, especially when they're desperate or surrounded by others who believe. Every religion has miracle stories. Hindus, Muslims, Christians, even cults. Are they all true? If not, why trust any of them? Eyewitnesses are unreliable. We know memory is fragile, people exaggerate, and stories grow in the telling. If a miracle really happened, water into wine, the dead rising, the sun standing still, why isn't there hard evidence? Why do miracles always seem to happen in places without cameras, hospitals, or skeptical observers? And when science investigates so-called miracles, the results vanish. Faith healings fail under controlled conditions. Statistically, prayer doesn't heal the sick any better than chance. If miracles are real, they should be repeatable and verifiable. But they're not. Religious experience is powerful, but it's not proof. People have visions on drugs, during seizures, or under stress. The mind is a master of illusion. If God wants us to believe, why hide behind feelings and stories? Why not show up unambiguously for everyone to see?
You dismiss religious experience as wishful thinking, but you can't explain away the sheer scale and power of what people report. Billions across history and culture have encountered something beyond themselves. Peace, awe, love, transformation. Are they all deluded? That's a bigger leap of faith than belief itself. Not all experiences are the same. Some are fleeting, but others change lives forever. Addicts freed, haters turned to lovers, the broken made whole. These aren't hallucinations. They're new beginnings. And miracles, they don't happen on command, but that doesn't mean they don't happen. There are cases doctors can't explain, events that defy probability, stories that persist even under scrutiny. You want everything on camera, but reality isn't a lab. Most of what you value, love, beauty, meaning, can't be bottled or measured, but you know they're real. Why should God be any different? Skepticism is healthy, but cynicism blinds you. Miracles aren't magic tricks. They're signs, not proofs. God isn't a circus act. He meets us where we are, and sometimes that means in the quiet, the desperate, the ordinary. The evidence is there if you're willing to see it.
Let's face divine hiddenness. If God is real and wants a relationship, why is he so hard to find? Why do sincere seekers get silence? Why are there millions who pray, beg, plead, and get nothing back but emptiness? If God loves everyone, why doesn't he make himself obvious? You say faith is a virtue, but why should belief require a leap in the dark? We don't use faith for anything else important. Medicine, justice, science. We want evidence, not just hope. If God wants us to trust him, why not show up? Clear, undeniable for all. The truth is, faith is belief without evidence. It's what you use when you don't have proof. That's not noble. It's dangerous. It's how people end up believing in anything. Aliens, conspiracy theories, cults. If God is real, he hides himself so well that the universe looks exactly the same as if he weren't there. You say the heart knows, but hearts are easily fooled. Reason is what keeps us honest. I'll follow the evidence wherever it leads, even if it leads away from God. That's not arrogance, that's integrity. And that's my closing. Reality doesn't need faith, it needs courage to face the truth.
God's hiddenness isn't absence, it's invitation. If God forced himself on us, there'd be no freedom, no real relationship. Love can't be compelled, it has to be chosen. God gives enough light for those who want to see and enough shadow for those who don't. That's not cruelty, that's respect. You want certainty, but life doesn't give it. We trust, we risk, we leap every day. Faith isn't blind, it's trust based on experience, history, and hope. The evidence is there: creation, conscience, Christ, but you have to be open to it. God doesn't shout, he whispers. Not because he's weak, but because he wants your heart, not just your mind. Faith isn't gullibility, it's commitment. It's the courage to say yes to meaning, to hope, to love, even when you can't see the whole picture. Reason matters, but it can't answer every question. Sometimes the deepest truths are the ones you have to live to understand. God isn't hiding, he's waiting. The question isn't, where is God? It's, are you willing to see? That's my closing. Faith isn't the enemy of reason, it's the completion of it, and the door is always open.
So by the numbers, the atheist takes the win in this intellectual showdown. But honestly, watching these two go at it round after round, it really was neck and neck the entire way. And here's the thing, while our judges declared a winner based on logical arguments and rhetorical skill, this debate is far from over. It's been raging for millennia, and it'll keep going long after this video ends. Because ultimately, this isn't about winning or losing. It's about searching for truth, wrestling with mystery, and having the courage to ask the hard questions. Whether you found yourself nodding along with the atheist's call for evidence and reason, or feeling moved by the believer's appeal to meaning and faith, what matters most is that you engaged, you thought, you questioned, maybe you even changed your mind about something, or at least understood the other side a little better. That's what great debates do. They don't just confirm what we already believe. They challenge us, stretch us, make us better thinkers and more compassionate human beings. So now I want to hear from you. Which arguments hit you the hardest? Did any particular moment make you pause and reconsider your own beliefs? Are there points you wish either side had made? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Seriously, the conversation doesn't end here, it continues with you. And if this kind of deep, thought-provoking content is your thing, make sure to hit that like button, share this with someone who loves a good intellectual challenge, and subscribe for more videos that dare to tackle the big questions. Thanks for sticking with us through this journey. Until next time, keep questioning, keep thinking, and keep being curious about this wild, mysterious existence we're all sharing together.